Are we starting now?
Yes. Why don't you take us out?
You said take us out. Today, well, first off, welcome back to Backwinded. I am Matthew McKenzie.
And my name is RJ LaValle. And if you could see, I'm wearing a fancy shirt today.
Why are you wearing a fancy shirt
This
today?
is in honor of you, having just come back from your vacation.
Moi?
Yes, you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
And that vacation, from what I understand,
Oh,
was the birth of an idea, was it not?
it was
Not just one, probably many. But
Many,
today,
many.
But today we're just going to be talking about one of them.
one idea. We may be, in this channel, going to be thinking about broadening our topics of inquiry, I guess it would be.
Yeah, broadening our horizons.
Broadening our horizons. Oh, we do have the pomposity jar instituted now. Yeah, we are thinking about not just looking at boats, past, present, and the people who built them then, the people who run them now, as we did, but also why they floated. And actually, today's episode is going to be a lot about this. It's what we're calling our broccoli episode. You kind of gotta have to do this in order for all the other yummy stuff.
This is going to be really well-flavored broccoli, though, because yes, this is broccoli, but we're gonna have some fun with this.
Oh, we're going to nerd out like nobody's
cool.
business. Yes, yeah. So anyway, the idea is to look at the things that made boats float. And as anyone who owns a boat knows, boats don't float in water. They float in paper, and in particular, money. So we are going to be talking about what drove trade and commerce until really, exclusively until World War II. And then beyond that, it still drives.
It's still today.
It's still today. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole mess in the
mean,
Strait of Hormuz. Like, it's...
Yeah.
All that money is floating in water.
Think of supply chain disruption during COVID.
Right. Yeah, it's all there.
It's all there.
So today, what we're going to do is we're going to start this.
All right. So right. You provided some really great notes, and I was taking a look through them. There is a lot of shit to go through this.
Yeah.
Like.
What is this? What are we even talking about?
You tell me. You're the one. You're the one who had this brilliant idea in Portugal.
Really, when we're talking about maritime history, we're talking about commodities. And wouldn't it be cool if we were to start doing episodes that would trace the production of a commodity from where it's born to where it's consumed? Yeah,
but there's a reason that you're burying the lead. Like, I remember you called me and you're like, I can't believe this, because it reminded you of Hamilton. Hamilton's
Hancock.
Hancock.
Right. Wine.
Right.
It was the wine trade.
Right.
And it was one of the
From Portugal.
From Portugal. It was a
Right.
huge trade.
Right.
In
And you're like,
exchange for
"Bing!"
codfish.
Right.
Right.
Codfish for wine. I mean, who knew that would be a thing?
That's Peter Pope wrote a book about it years ago, Fish into Wine. It was a great book, and there's more to explore.
Yeah.
So if there is one place that we could go
And
as maritime
this was Hancock, not the signer. This was Hancock's father.
Thomas Hancock.
Yeah.
He was a wine merchant,
Yeah.
and the whole codfish aristocracy of Marblehead. We're going to talk a lot more about
codfish aristocracy.
Oh yeah, that's.
Have you ever heard those? I've never heard those two words together in that way.
So that's a thing, and we're getting way off topic. Well, sort of off topic today.
Not really.
Not really. The codfish aristocracy was a group of merchants north of Boston in the late colonial period, so right before the American Revolution, who basically would take in. They extended credit to independent fishermen in exchange for sole access to their catches,
and their firstborn.
Yeah, actually, well, Danny Vicker's study shows that oftentimes fishermen never cleared their debts, but more importantly, oftentimes those merchants would erase the debts upon the death of the fisherman.
Oh,
not always.
How big of them?
Well, they made plenty of money off of
kind of my point.
Right. So they would collect cargoes of codfish, send them to Portugal, Lisbon, Porto, wherever, and exchange it for port, Madeira, whatever wine they could get, or they would run them to the UK or something like that.
Yeah.
So
So you're getting not ahead of yourself, kind of ahead of yourself, because we're going to get into where it all came from, where it all went to, and that nothing is as simple as many narratives would like to portray.
Yeah. In simplicity comes bearing of important details.
Yeah.
And so today what we're going to do is basically try to kick the snot out of that triangle trade model of colonial trade that you learned in high school. It's a lot more complicated than that. And to do that, we are going to really geek out and take a hard look at a 1784 parliamentary paper issued by John Holroyd, 1st Earl of Sheffield, an Irish peer who was very concerned that the Pitt administration, at the end of with peace between Britain and the United States, the new United States established, was going to basically allow Americans to trade with Britain on the same terms as they had before the war itself. And Holroyd, Sheffield, being a staunch conservative, was like, hell no.
Yeah.
And actually, this document that we're going to be looking at, the appendices supporting data, helped kill the bill.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, you hid that one from me.
I don't tell you everything in the writers' meetings. No way.
So, right out of the gate, on your notes, and then also obviously in the table, and periodically we'll put up these, but you're not going to be able to read anything because the print is so
it's insanely small. Yeah.
But anyway, so in this table, there's this demarcation between topsail versus sloop.
Yeah,
Topsail versus. So that right out of the gate, I found that intriguing for two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
First, the simplicity of it, and then
or you could say the rank idiocy of it, but we'll keep
there's
going.
that, but it really gets into the heart of so many of the things that we've talked about, of the difficulty of placing oneself in that time period when you're looking back upon it the way we are. Am I putting too much on that by thinking, oh, is this just their way of differentiating between square rig versus fore and aft?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us.
No, you got to imagine, like, this is pre-computers.
Yeah.
This is pre-typeface.
Right,
But here's like some law clerk, some parliamentary law clerk is given
he had to do it one way or the other.
Like a stack of colonial office blue books, if they were using those. And he was told to basically by hand collate all this data and add it up. And we're not talking about, this is pre-decimalized British currency too. Decimalization kicked in, I want to say 1969. So this is pounds, shillings, and pence, where 12 pence to a shilling, 20 shillings to the pound.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is not simple math. I mean, obviously, by the time you become a parliamentary law clerk, you can do this in your head without thinking about it. But it's just, it must have been
so the importance
a massive
though,
amount
between
of job.
topsail and sloop, or square versus fore and aft, is, for those who are unfamiliar, again, a quick primer, is that the squares are going to be basically your long haul 18-wheelers.
Exactly.
And
Transatlantic.
Right. And all your fore and aft stuff is going to be your local last mile box truck.
Pretty much, except for the coastal trade down to the West Indies from New England, for example. But also, fishing vessels that weren't going to go up to the Grand Banks in the middle of winter, but they're going to haul their catch down to the West Indies and trade it for tropical products produced by enslaved people. And all the products that we're talking about today.
This is really jumping ahead, and this is going to be a quick blip, and then we'll run away because we'll come back. And then
tried, and you wouldn't let me.
Sorry, I know. We'll just see. But in the list, in between mahogany bedposts and pimentos, was the aforementioned
enslaved Africans. We'll use the modern parlance, not the term that was used back then.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, this was the sociopathic nature of commerce at the time, and whether I think there were 22 people, 27 people listed as
I just looked at it like
commodities, which is galling and appalling.
Yeah.
The fact remains that all the stuff that we're talking about today, 90% of it was tied directly or indirectly to.
Let's get into the gen fangs and the fustics.
I beg your pardon. No, I'm not going to touch your fustics. What were the three weirdest commodities? So what we're looking at is
those are my top two.
Top two. So what we're talking about is a compilation of colonial exports for, I think, January 1770 to January 1771, compiled in this Sheffield report published. There was actually 3 editions of it
Oh.
in 1784. So what they did was they took a year before the revolution erupted and basically compile all the data. Now they probably cherry picked the year to support their argument against liberalizing trade within the United States.
Yeah.
But it gives us the quantities in the valuations give us a snapshot, a moment in time, where we can see all the weird shit that was being hauled back and forth around the Atlantic world.
But
and
also-
it's remarkably complex.
And also the insanely mundane.
Yeah. Shoes. American. 3,700 and how many pairs? I think I have 3,149 pairs to the West Indies.
Oh, yes.
Valued at 393 pounds. At a time when, and I think I sent this to you last night, the average British worker earned 15 pounds sterling a year. But the modern calculations of currency valuation is a little weird. So
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
To do a one-to-one is it's problematic.
It's problematic. So instead, I use the price of a pint of beer calculation.
That's a good one.
A pint of good beer, proper, porter, in 1760, went for 1 to 2 pennies a pint. Cheaper small beer would be like half a penny.
Okay.
So that gives you a rough idea of, what 300 and, if we divide 3,000 into 300 pounds, you're talking, oh God, it's pound, shillings, and pence. I can't do that math in my head. But if someone who has any interest in doing this, please help us out. But we can get a rough idea of the valuations here. 15 pounds sterling was a lot of money for an average laborer in the British Empire in Britain in the 1760s. In the United States, it's a little weirder because you had, colonies issuing their own currency.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No. The funniest thing about that is Massachusetts issued some colonial, I think it was a land bank. They tried to set up a land bank. So they would print currency in anticipation of selling lands that they had seized from Native Americans in Western Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
These things were easily counterfeit. And the way that the Massachusetts government could tell the counterfeit from the real was that on the counterfeit ones, they spelled Massachusetts properly. The government issued one missed an S.
No kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
I love the colonial period. It's so colorful.
Nice way of putting it.
Something along those lines. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the
my-
list of the commodities, and we're going to talk about the shipping patterns too. Maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. But so your top.
I really want to get into the shipping.
Okay, we'll get into
That's
that.
fascinating.
Your top 3 weird products are.
Genfang.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Ginseng.
Oh, it's ginseng?
Yeah, so they use these dropped S's that look
All right.
like F's.
So is ginseng?
Yeah.
Was everybody needing to get horny or something?
There's always a need for Europeans to get horny. Every product they discovered in the New World was shipped back as an aphrodisiac. Everything.
And then fustic.
Fustic. I think that's a type of cloth.
Okay.
Again, correct me on this.
And everything else I started thinking was fairly mundane, except for grindstones. Shipping a grindstone.
Well, if you think about what a
Oh, I
grindstone...
know. Trust me, I know. As I started thinking about it, like, well, of course they're going to need the grindstones, particularly if they're starting to take the sugar and producing rum.
Right.
I mean, so it's gonna help speed along the manufacture process.
We already said that New England's #1 export was rocks.
You're right.
I just didn't realize it was in the shape of a grindstone.
Well hewn.
Well hewn and shaped. So my 3 weird ones, chaises.
Oh yes, I saw that. I thought that was lovely. So it's like, well, who doesn't need a lounge?
Right, like and like a couple hundred of them, if I recall.
Well, I mean, if you're the gentry, you need to be comfortable.
Okay, yeah, chaises. Tortoise shells, which is a bit macabre from a marine environmental history perspective.
The problem is, I saw that as mundane, given the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I was like, tortoise shell, okay.
then-
But what were they using it for? I mean, all sorts of things, everything from...
Right, it was sort of a precursor
Yeah.
to plastic.
Yeah.
And, there was some, and then snake root.
I missed that one.
What the hell is snake root?
I don't know.
I have no idea either, but it struck me as, well, particular. Let's put it that way.
All right, somebody help us. Tell us what snake root is.
Yeah.
And don't be profane.
So I also took a look at volumes of stuff, and I picked up the 3 largest volumes of export commodities. Dried fish, 660,003 quintals.
Your what hurts?
Ow.
What's a quintal?
It's 112 pounds dried weight of fish.
Wow.
That was the standard unit of...
And it was 660,000
1,000 of them exported.
Wow.
A lot of them going to the West Indies.
That's a lot of
That's
fish.
a lot.
And it's dried fish.
Dried fish. Headed, gutted, split, boned, basically everything but just the flesh. Like
That's a lot of fish.
It's a lot of fish.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. No, cod.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. And what's a hogshead?
A hogshead is a type of barrel. So
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
tons, barrels, also, and I love the abbreviation for barrels, bibble. A hogshead, which is HHD, and then they have things called pipes, which
Okay.
are long, narrow barrels that were used to ship wine. And
Put that in
apparently,
your pipe and smoke it.
well, I'd rather drink the wine in the pipe. And one of the reasons why they did this, I learned recently from a wine class that I took here in Saybrook
Oh, lovely.
at SIP Wine School.
Very nice.
Derek Kennedy, thank you for your tutelage. No, but apparently, and they still do this, is that the smaller the barrel, the more surface contact between the wine and the wood. And so you have more oxidization, and sometimes winemaker might want that to say convey more of an oaky flavor or to add more oxidization. Bigger barrels have less surface contact area with the wine because there's just much more inside the barrel that's not in touch with it.
That's just
So
geometry.
it's geometry, big thing, little thing type thing. But I thought that was really interesting.
That's
But
super cool. What we really want to lay out here is a little more of the introduction to this stuff was going on.
yeah,
And we're not going to drill too deeply down into any one particularly thing.
No.
I mean,
well, I still have some things to.
oh no,
laundry list,
that's still yeah.
So but no, we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of every single line item.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is how many items do you think were listed on that table?
Oh my gosh.
100?
Easy.
Easily, 100, 150 individual items that
Yeah.
were exported in sufficient quantity to register
Yeah.
import records, and that's just the legal stuff.
And you have to imagine in that day and age, they probably had a threshold below which there's like, oh, we're not going to account for that.
Yeah, and then there was all the smuggling, which so this is the stuff that's captured through legal entry and export customs paperwork.
Well, and you pointed out when we were doing one of our last episodes, I believe it was the Mayflower episode about, and I was asking the question about somebody going back from the Netherlands back over to England, and how were they not picked up? And you're reminding me that borders were not what they are today.
No.
And the penchant
Yeah, cough up, buddy.
That's
another tenor in there. Woohoo!
I told you we'll be traveling pretty quickly.
We're going to be traveling to Tahiti tomorrow.
Yeah, for one to see the opportunity to go smuggle something was pretty high.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, you don't have customs, CBP sitting around or ICE waiting for.
The Dutch made it their policy in the island of St. Eustatius to basically be a free port. Anybody could trade with anyone they wanted to. And I think it was just a small fee that funded the port operations or something. And so if you wanted to...
do whatever you want, just give us a small cut.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just... And you got to understand, like, free trade was viewed... Looking at this from a colonial perspective, here you are part of an empire. Sprawling British Empire, Spanish Empire, French Empire.
Dutch.
Yeah, by the 1760s, that was
1760s.
kind of, it started to wane a little bit.
But still, they were a significant maritime
absolutely.
force. And even at that point, they're like, yeah, what are we going to put, like 3 other frigates down there to, it's like, nah, just let them do their thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much the carrying trade. They specialized in carrying everybody else's stuff and made a mint doing so. They had their own colonies in what is now Indonesia and
Yeah.
Jakarta and places
Oh,
like
yeah,
that. And that's a different story altogether. But here you are part of this empire, and the empire is telling you you can't trade with your enemies. And if you're, there are parts of the West Indies and the Antilles where you can look across the water and see France, effectively, a portion of France.
Yeah.
You want wine, they have wine. You have something else that they want, and some government back in Paris or London
have
is
ginseng.
ginseng
Yeah.
is telling you
Or a fustic.
you can't sail over there in a day, trade, and come back again. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to
It's easy enough to do today.
inter-imperial trade,
Yeah.
there was you had all these imperial policies, but the people on the periphery of those empires were like, screw this, I need to get the stuff I need.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
go do it.
And kind of to my point of that list, so much of it seemed so mundane.
Yeah.
It's because you're talking about small little islands.
Right.
That even if it's an island like what I think Martinique is fairly lush. Because some of them are fairly lush. Still, all of that any arable land they're going to be using for sugar to make money.
Right.
They're not going to be using that for staple crops or other
No,
things.
why you use the land for anything other than what you're going to
Yeah.
make money off
Yeah.
of? I just remembered where I put that little analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So all right. So the total value in this annual accounting is £3,356,159 sterling and change. Of that, 906,000 pounds, almost a full third, was tobacco. 27% of the whole.
Wow.
Bread and flour amounted to 504,553 pounds sterling. That represented 15%. That's just bread and flour. Dried fish came in at 15% of the total, 375,000 pounds sterling and change. Rice came in at 10%, at 336,000 pounds. Indigo came in at 4% with 131,000 pounds of value, and wheat itself was another 131,000 pounds. Those 5 commodities represented almost 3/4 of the value of all commodities exported from the United States.
Wow.
Well, how were 5 or 6? 1, 2, 3,
it's
4,
5.
5, 6, 6.
That's
Those 6 goods. That's
out
it.
of a list of 110.
110 entire, like this. So that shows you what
Wow.
the role that the American colonies played.
Yeah.
Tobacco, fish, and provisions.
Yep.
And to get to that, in terms of provisions, 45,868 tons were exported in this one year. And rice, I want to say it was 149,453 bibbles of rice.
Wow.
So I mean, again, these numbers don't really, matter much. Oh, by the way, I have in my notes here, the top 3 commodities. So tobacco, bread and flour, and dried fish,
Okay.
in terms of economic value, represented 53% of the value of all American commodities.
Wow.
Yeah. So like half of everything that we produce, what came out in terms of value was tobacco, bread and flour, and dried fish
So
that
let's
year.
dig into the how. We're talking about the what to
Yeah.
a certain degree, and what value that was. What I found particularly interesting was the top 3 ports, right? Mass, Pennsylvania, so I guess that'd be Philadelphia.
Philadelphia,
right?
yeah.
And Virginia. Where would most of it be going out of in Virginia?
Generally the Chesapeake Bay area. There wasn't one major port. There was lots of regional
Right.
ports.
Okay.
And also the way
So when they say Virginia, they're talking about Virginia writ large.
Yeah,
I mean, so
yeah.
Massachusetts could be not just Boston, but it could be
Gloucester, Salem,
Right,
Beverly, something
right.
like that.
New Bedford.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a colony of.
Yeah, yeah.
And the way Virginian, the Chesapeake cargo system, you basically would had by the 1760s, you had these large plantations that were trying to hold on producing tobacco, and they basically each one had their own waterfront. And so ocean-going vessels would go up all the different tributaries and load up whatever was available.
What do you think then that contributed to the intra-colonial trade then? Because we're listing here in this document, it talks so much about North America to North America.
Right. So you have a provision trade. Connecticut was known as the provision state in this period because all the surplus commodities that Connecticut Yankee farmers produced was sold to the general store or put on credit at the general store in exchange for the stuff that the farmer needed. And then that merchant shipped everything down, lumber, staves, bread, cheese, flour, beef, cattle, whatever, shipped it down to the West Indies for the very reason you just mentioned. Why grow corn in the West Indies when you can buy corn from somebody else? When you can grow sugar and make more money on it.
So really, the West Indies, they were really just glamping.
I don't think plantation agriculture would be considered glamping.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the workers. I'm talking about the...
They were never there. The people actually got the money. They stayed in London.
Really?
Yeah.
So who ran their operations?
Overseers, plantation managers, they outsourced it. And they just got the proceeds. They stayed in London.
What dicks?
Yeah. That's the understatement of a lifetime. Plantation owner is a dick. Oh, let me count the ways. Yeah, I mean, they're absentee land. I mean, the same thing was going on in British Ireland. Like most of the Irish peers, like Lord Sheffield himself was an Irish peer. He never, I don't know if he even set foot in Ireland. He may have, but he spent most of his life outside London. And it's just absentee land ownership.
What a dick.
What a dick. There's a lot of dicks back then.
Yeah.
A lot of dicks back then.
Wow.
So all the stuff that, there were not a lot of enslaved African people and their descendants in New England at the eve of the Revolution compared to the U.S. South. But New England's economy was tied intimately.
Oh, intimately. We went over that in Puritans to Yankees.
Right.
I mean,
it's inseparable. Without the plantations in what would become the U.S. South and the British West Indies,
you probably wouldn't have seen the financial success that we saw in the Northeast.
Absolutely.
From New York up to Boston.
Right. The Philadelphia North.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just wasn't happening. So, and
wow, such a complex, nuanced, not necessarily totally attractive.
No, it's
narrative.
It's ugly. It's ugly. So some other interesting.
No wonder we're not taught that in fifth grade social studies.
Yeah, well, the problem is that even in high school, it's oversimplified in this triangle trade model.
So,
because
let's dig into that for a second, and I'm going to ask a probably an unexpected question, but you won't be surprised by it. That is part of the. I'm going to get pompous again.
I'm making money today, man. Woohoo!
Is part of the pedagogy, right? That surrounds that and how it's taken care of in a secondary school environment. Is that a feature and not a bug? Is that because sometimes to grab somebody's interest, you need to oversimplify.
I think it's both.
Okay.
The general pattern holds up, the triangle trade pattern. And a lot of high school history teachers move beyond the triangle trade. They acknowledge that it's an oversimplification. Okay. But it gets the kid, the most unsung heroes in American education are high school history teachers because they're battling TikTok and phones and all that.
Yeah.
And apathy.
And back-winded podcast.
And back. I'm sure we are challenging the American high school history model right now. No. Don't kids pay attention to your high school history teachers. They're smarter than we are by a long shot.
Oh, that's without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Definitely.
But they've got to grab the attention and they've got to do it quickly. And the general pattern kind of works. You get this idea of a three-corner transatlantic flow of capital turned into enslaved Africans, turned into tropical products.
You and I have
sold.
It's not unique just to us, but we are in that advantageous position where we're a little older. You have the experience that you have academically. We're able to look at these things and continue with that theme of practically every episode. That is, life is always a little more complex than what we like to portray. And when I say we, it's obviously the collective, the general we, but
But sometimes you got to simplify the minutia to get the
Yeah.
broad patterns.
yeah, yeah,
Now, it depends on where you want to go with this too, because if you want to get a general idea of the colonial transatlantic economy,
simplify, broad stroke.
done. That's all you need to go.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in it and you want to go further,
Then you dive deep.
you come to the Backwinded podcast and listen to us. I'm learning from you.
Well done, well done.
God almighty. What are you turning me
I'll
into?
get you to sell out in no time.
So it's a lot more complicated. And I think it's important for us to understand that you have shipping lanes or shipping routes that just link New England to the West Indies and just link New England or the Chesapeake to a specific port in Europe. Like Glasgow, for example, was the major center for the tobacco trade in around 1700.
I have to imagine, weather dependent, these things were like clockwork.
Yeah,
Boom, boom,
right.
boom, boom,
I mean,
right?
they may not have been able to predict the date and time.
Of course not.
But you knew the fleet was going to arrive
Yeah.
in the spring.
Yeah.
And you had some people who all they did was go to Africa, buy enslaved Africans from
Yep.
the people in Africa that enslaved them,
Yep.
and then bring them to the West Indies, cash out, and then come home to their summer estate in Bristol, Rhode Island. The DeWolf family, for example.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty prominent
yeah.
sellers of enslaved people. I use the term the sociopathy of commerce and earlier, and I think it's important to why I use that term.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much a humanity can suspend of their own better nature
When currency is involved.
in the name of well, I got to do what I got to do because it's the bottom line. And it becomes almost either an invitation or a crutch or an excuse to suspend empathy, integrity, decency, ethics.
So let's look at that from a maritime perspective. That's a really interesting. I don't disagree with you. I think, like anything, right? There's nuance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Obviously, these are broad strokes condemnations.
Yeah.
And not every business person feels this way by a long shot.
Precisely.
There are instances. I mean, we're talking about the outliers, not the everyday.
Well, and I guess that's.
But then
that's,
again, but the colonial period, like
it was brutal.
it was brutal. Like
Right.
even Eluda Equiano.
You had brought this up. We were talking about this in terms of the 80 Years' War episode, of they were really cruel. It's like, yeah, but was that kind of like part and parcel of imagine being some peasant in some feudal state? I mean, your life was
Yeah,
going to be shite back then, anyways.
If you lived, we'd be dead by now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Or old and wizened people like, my gosh, they're still alive. He must be a warlock.
But I think it's really important to like you know.
I love how you didn't even flinch on that one.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah, he stopped listening to me years ago.
Cough up. When Eluda Equiano published his autobiography in 1797, in discussion with John Wilberforce, so this abolitionist campaigner in Britain, and Equiano himself was an enslaved African who managed to get to freedom in the UK after having been a mariner for a long time. He could hand reef and steer, he could navigate, and he was able to use those skills to make it a better life for himself in enslavement, and then ultimately get ashore in the UK where he was no longer enslaved. When he writes his argument against slavery in support of abolition, he's not making this argument on moral grounds the way, William Lloyd Garrison would in the United States, a generation later would. He's making on commercial grounds. Why are we enslaving these people when we could be selling things to them? I mean, that's the mindset.
But he was using the zeitgeist of the time to his advantage.
Exactly.
He was trying to leverage the mindset of how people
He was
thought.
appealing. He was using the best lever at his hands, and that was through Britain's wallets.
So
not their consciences.
again, pulling that back to that maritime environment, and that that cruelty or the sociopathy. Or,
That's my term, but yeah.
yeah. How do you think that played out in the forecastle? So and when we use that parlance, we say the forecastle, that's basically the differentiation between those who were sailing the ship and those who were in charge of it. Right?
Yeah,
So the
basically
quarter deck, people are in the back.
rank and file versus management, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it played out in a variety of different ways. There's been a lot of scholarship looking at collective action amongst mariners, and for example, the famous British Royal Navy strike of Spithead in the Nore in 1797, I believe it was, where the sailors refused.
Because I think you've noticed, or you've said before, that so much of the primary source material exists is more so from a military perspective than from a commercial, because you're going to have some log books, but apart from that, you're not really getting many narratives of people who are just working a fishing schooner or somebody who is working a cargo vessel.
Well, what you are going to see is moments of conflict, because that conflict generates paperwork.
Okay.
And so you do see merchant mariners.
Who the hell wants that?
I know. You see merchant mariners suing for back wages, captains and things like that. And merchant mariners, even as poor as they were, often had access to colonial courts at the very least. Huh. But these are moments defined by conflict. So the paperwork is generated because the conflict is already in existence. I could see sailor on sailor predation. There's no listen to sea songs and sea shanties. These guys were not necessarily, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm. Like they saw each other as prey or potential victim. Competition, or just like
prey or victim. Wow.
I'm a dick. Yeah. I'm going to take your shit, and you can't do anything about it because I'm bigger, stronger, and I've got a bigger knife.
So the subtitle of this episode will be
Humans Are Dicks. That concludes this podcast forever, because we've just answered all the world's problems. Humans are dicks. End of discussion. No, we're not. We're going to keep going.
Yeah, we're going to find that silver lining.
See, here's the difference between mythology and history.
Okay, talk to me.
Mythology is aspirational.
Yeah.
I think it's socially important. I think
You think history is not aspirational at all?
Hear me out.
All right.
It's important to have founding myths because it instills in people an idea of what we as a people, however we want to define that, wish to be. Because we cherry pick moments from the past that highlight what we think is important. History, however, it's an empirical science in a lot of ways.
It's neither. It's neither.
It just is.
Right. It's not aspirational, nor is it
condemnatory. Is that the word?
I was going to say something like that.
I'm going to cough up.
Condemning,
indicting, ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say ugly.
Yeah. All of our language is going to get dumbed down to like a 6th grade level eventually.
Maybe we should have started there. So it just is.
Yeah.
And I think historians, I as a historian try not to think in terms of a moral redemption narrative arc.
You're not qualifying.
I'm trying to interpret the evidence as frankly as I can. Obviously, I'm bringing personal perspectives to it. I am not objective. Well, we know this as a historian, but I try to line the dots up as in the way that makes the most sense. And sometimes that's going to use one body of interpretive tradition and theory. And other times it's going to be another one. And these are various kits in the historian's tool bag to make sense of what this mess of paperwork is telling me. But I'm not comfortable thinking about, obviously historians have to write in terms of narrative arcs. History is a literature. We have a beginning, we have a middle, we have an end. Otherwise,
which at the end of the day is, from what I've observed, is fairly arbitrary.
No, it's not. You choose your beginning, middle, and end points very carefully based upon a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay,
like
so
what captures the story arc you want.
You and I are using the exact same visage.
You have $30 now.
Yeah, I know. In the same way, because the conscious choice of your beginning is arbitrary.
I don't know.
My point being is that there's no absolute beginning. You're not.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right.
So
it is.
It's not arbitrary in the sense that I see where you're getting at.
It's arbitrary.
It could be at any point.
In the grand scheme of things. However, you are choosing to make your beginning at that point.
Because of evidence, because of the story, that the argument you wish to present in
Somebody
your analysis.
else coming in, seeing the exact same
Would
material,
say,
might say, no,
no,
I'm going to start
it began
over
earlier.
instead.
Yeah.
Or it began later.
Yeah, and that's that's
But
historical literature.
That's the fun of history, too.
That's the fun of history.
Right.
But I don't want to write Jerry Bruckheimer action movie scripts. That's not my job.
Things go boom.
That they go boom in the past too. But the good guys don't always. My point is, the good guys don't always win.
Oh, okay.
In fact, everybody thinks they're the good guy at one point or another.
When everybody's the good guy.
Nobody's the good guy.
Assessment
This was
of
supposed to be a light episode too. We're gonna have fun with weird colonial products.
Yeah.
We are totally off base on this, and we haven't gotten to the shipping patterns yet.
Oh, let's go there.
Let's go to the shipping patterns. Okay.
Well, let's have a smoother transition than that. Oh, no, that's good enough. All right, I'm liking where this is.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained?
All right. So, to get at the topsails and sloops, you're absolutely right. When I find
We did start with the shipping
We
patterns.
did,
That's how we got on that bizarro land tangent.
So the topsails and sloops, I think, is really more about highlights a gap between the legal profession, the law, the practice of law, the people regulating colonial trade, and the people actually working in the field. Because there's no way.
That's a story as old as bookkeeping.
Right, but there's no way a professional mariner, a captain, would use those gross categories. They would find something else to make those.
Oh, sure.
So here's some law clerk who has no idea what he doesn't know his ass end from a hole in the ground about a boat, and just trying to figure this out. Now I could be wrong about that, but I think it highlights how detached the regulators were from the actual practice of the trade they were regulating, and that can be problematic sometimes. Now,
has that changed?
maybe. Okay, so here's the interesting thing. When we look at tonnage, so regardless of topsail, so whatever shape, hull, or rig it's being hauled in, about 1/3 of all the tonnage coming into North American ports was coming from another North American port.
Yeah, that I found absolutely fascinating. It's all just going back and forth. But
coastal trade. It's all coastal trade.
Yeah, of course it makes sense because each little region has its specialty.
Yeah, and stuff. It's easier to get stuff from Rhode Island to Connecticut than get it from Britain.
Yeah.
And so they.
Particularly when it comes to the litany of the staples that were on here on that tally sheet.
So, and this is in terms of imports.
Yeah.
The next largest source of imports to North American ports was the West Indies. And that makes sense because that fits within that triangle trade model.
Was that a little more, though, a process of convenience where instead of having vessel after vessel after vessel plying small island after small after small island, you have a bunch of fore and aft rigged vessels bringing everything from West Indies up to North America from which it could be distributed out to other locations?
No.
Really?
No, it's about wood.
Huh.
There's wood in New England.
Yeah.
Wood you build a ship with, you build a fishing schooner, you go fishing, you dry the fish, you then sail it down to the West Indies, filled with that fish and lumber, wood products.
Yeah.
You trade it for molasses, this cheap byproduct of sugar refining. You haul that back up to New England where there's lots of wood to turn it into rum.
Yeah.
Distilling requires a lot of fuel. And the best source of fuel in colonial North America was wood.
Yeah.
So that's why you have rum distilleries all over the place in colonial New England. Yeah. That's my theory, but it's the environmental lens to look at this.
Okay.
And it made sense.
Yeah.
But New Englanders are really good at finding ways to add value to commodities.
Yeah, make money.
Right, the value added, whether it's turning raw wood into boats or turning raw wood into rum.
Yeah.
they were using the local advantages of cargo and blah, 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 quack, quack, quack.
Yeah.
Whatever I was talking about. Finally, and so this is where things start to break up with the colonial triangle trade. Only 26% of tonnage coming into colonial ports came from Great Britain and Ireland.
Yeah.
So by far more cargo tonnage was coming into ports from neighboring colonies than from Great Britain and Ireland.
It'd be fascinating to
In 1770, though, this is a one-year snapshot.
Exactly. It's like imagine fast forwarding 100 years to the Victorian era when the explosion of the Industrial Revolution and what was coming out of England at that time.
Changes
right?
everything.
Everything must have just been so upended, and that's something of history and how we all see our modern state with a lowercase s. So you've lamented many different times before of your exactly the struggle you have with words like heritage and tradition, and
They're just fuzzy.
it's not just for me it's not just the fuzziness of it, it's that implication of things have always been dot
Yeah.
right,
Stayed, stuck,
yep,
fixed.
and you look, it doesn't take much time and seeing it doesn't take looking at too long of a stretch of history to see how quickly things change.
Yeah.
So quick. I mean, think about it. We're talking 1770 here. Jump back to 1670, looking backwards to what we were seeing. Talk about different economies at that point.
We talked in the Puritan and Yankee episode
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. I mean, we're like literally it's one generation.
One generation later,
Maybe
and
two, tops.
And at that point, that was the light bulb aha moment. Oh my gosh, there's this shit going on down in the West Indies.
We can make some dough.
We can make some money.
Right.
2 generations later,
They're
making it
practically,
rain.
literally printing it,
Yeah.
spelling Massachusetts correctly.
Well, the counterfeiters.
The counterfeit. All right. So, in terms of which ports were receiving the most imports, this is probably pretty conventional. Massachusetts was receiving 18%. Philadelphia was 13%.
Center of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Center of an angry, vengeful God that
Right.
hates the Red Sox. And Virginia was getting about 12. So nothing really is starting for that. What I find really interesting is the percentage of exports is almost identical.
Yeah.
That almost across the board is so weird.
Crazy.
So exactly the same amount of tonnage is coming into Massachusetts as Massachusetts is shipping out.
Would that support to a certain degree my suspicion of there being just larger commerce centers
It's you have major port facilities
Right.
and that sort of thing. You've got more people. I mean, Philadelphia was the largest city in North America at the time. I was surprised that Massachusetts was holding its own, frankly.
Yeah.
But I think what was putting it up over the edge of Philadelphia was probably the tonnage and value being generated by the fishery out of Salem and Beverly.
Oh, okay.
That was the center of the colonial
Right.
cod fishery. Without that, I think these numbers would have Pennsylvania would be on top.
And all you have to do is go back to your listing of how much of that was cod.
Right.
Right. I mean, that was crazy.
What I find really shocking was what I called in our writing meeting import dependencies. How much does one colony rely upon one region for its imports or its export market? 70% of all Massachusetts imports came from North America and Great Britain and Ireland. 60% of all Pennsylvania imports came from the West Indies and Southern Europe and Africa. And my hunch is those are enslaved Africans.
Yeah.
That's my hunch.
Yeah.
But why Philadelphia and not Virginia? Because Virginia sees
a really good question.
68% coming into Great Britain and Ireland and North
Yeah.
American ports or the West Indies. So Virginia, Great Britain and Ireland and the West Indies are equal, almost identical.
I'm sure there's somebody who knows that.
Right. Now, I think what's going on is by the 1770s, the tobacco market had crashed. It could crash probably 100 years before. Yeah, they're still growing it and making money, obviously, as we saw.
Yeah.
But the large scale the large-scale plantations in the Chesapeake area were starting to transition over towards growing grain and cashing in on that. They were still producing tobacco,
Yeah.
but they were starting to shift towards provisions.
Huh.
And they were trying to find a way to justify, maintaining these large populations of enslaved Africans, which again, in the
So it wasn't just for export purposes. It was also just because they needed the actual staples in order to fuel their.
well, and also, I'm not sure when this started to happen. Certainly after the prohibition on the importation of enslaved people in 1808.
Okay.
But you started to see
Yeah.
the internal slave trade probably starting in the 1770s as well.
So there was so much upheaval and so much change in
Yeah.
that late 1700s, that early 18th century, early 19th, or
Yeah.
late 18th century, early 19th century.
Yeah, and there's a reason why there was a constitutional crisis leading to the revolution.
Yeah.
People didn't feel like things were holding together in one
Yeah.
way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And then I think each region had different reasons.
Of course.
And
of
each
course.
group of people within each region had
Yeah,
different reasons.
like anything, no group is a
Yeah.
monolith. Right?
Yeah. So let's see, for exports, Massachusetts, 72% are going to North America and the West Indies of all Massachusetts exports, 72%. Philadelphia sees 60% going to North America and the West Indies.
What I found interesting about that tabulation, though, is that North America and West Indies was in a
Separate, those are separate categories.
those separate.
Yeah.
But there were some columns though where they were combining.
Well, they had Great Britain and Ireland.
Was
one.
North America and was it the Bahamas?
Bahamas. Yeah.
Okay.
North American Bahamas. You have Great Britain and Ireland.
Right.
And then you have
All right. Then it was West Indies.
British and foreign West Indies.
Mm-hmm,
And then you had Southern Europe and Africa. And I think this may have been how the Colonial Office organized itself bureaucratically at the time, but I could be wrong.
It could also see that as spheres of influence when it came to their military.
Yeah, it could be.
Right. Different
be.
regions. Like
Right.
where do we need to send people?
Right. So there's some. Again, the general triangle trade pattern sort of holds up.
Yeah.
But what we don't see is how important the coastal trade is. When you have the amount of vessels that are just, hundreds of them.
Yeah.
All carrying a little bit of stuff by modern standards.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if in 1770
The seas would
whole-
not be as empty as they are
now.
today.
Yeah,
Right.
I would be surprised.
Particularly if you're traveling, doing coastal navigation up and down the North
Oh,
America.
you'd never be.
East-
You'd always see somebody else.
There'd always be some other boat.
Now, whether they're a friend or foe, that's a different story.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there were trips where, going from the American colonies back to Europe, they saw someone making that trip would see a sail every single day.
Yeah.
That they had the visibility to do so. I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. Maybe only one, but
still. Mm-hmm. That's
there's a lot of boats sloshing around.
yeah.
I mean, the Atlantic is a big place.
It
I
is.
think it's unlikely that happened. There might be a few days in there where they wouldn't see anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's within the realm of possibility that there are a few trips where there was...
Particularly if you're in well-plied shipping channels or shipping lanes.
the Great Circle Route, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You're going to see somebody every day.
Yeah.
It could just be hull down way off on the horizon.
All right. So what are we going to do to wrap the put
Put a cork in this?
jagged bow on this?
I think the takeaway is that there was a lot of just day-to-day stuff being shipped along the more day-to-day stuff shipping along the eastern seaboard of the United States, or what would become the United States.
That's what struck me most is the
that,
mundane nature of everything that was being shipped. It was like I was hoping for that, like, wow, that is nuts. But like, no, all of it made sense.
Bread,
particularly
biscuit.
now that I'm realizing that was ginseng and not Jinfang.
Yeah. I was struck by how important the coastal trade was. I shouldn't have been struck by that. But in terms of the sheer amount, the percentage of cargo coming in from other ports, I wasn't expecting it that high.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised looking at it, but it I was expecting to see more being brought in from Europe. But by the 1770s, you have a pretty well-developed colonial economy, and there's forges and stuff like that almost everywhere. So yeah, I shouldn't have been surprised. But a lot of tonnage.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
What are we doing next?
we haven't decided exactly what we're doing next, but I think I see somewhere in the horizon us taking an interesting turn into more of the land of the recreational vessel.
I think it's time to go play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enough
I
of this.
like putting it that way. Go play.
Enough of this working on sea. Let's go play at sea.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, until the next time, my name is RJ LaValle.
And I'm Matthew McKenzie, and this has been Backwinded.